we see that, we can understand there's a box. So there's in April, not in. So, in and out. We don't say outside of April, usually, but we can say for each month which one we are in. If we're talking about one of these days, on April 8th, then what we're looking at is a box with a bunch of places in it. And if you think of old calendars, right, thousands of years ago, when they had a calendar, to mark the time of the year, they would have, like maybe a squares like this, and they would have like a little rock or something that they would put on the day to show which day it is, right? And it's a simple idea like that. So for a day we say on, because it's in this context. We say in the month on that day. For time, during the day, it's more like this idea. So we see time as always moving. So when we talk about one time, then we talk about stopping the movement. So whenever we talk about location or direction, we're always talking about starting moving, continuing moving, and stopping moving, right? 中文不一定是这样子，因为穿衣服，我在穿衣服，等一下不要穿衣服 right? Maybe for taking clothes off, you can say it differently. But that's why a lot of Chinese-speaking students have problems with this. In the morning, I get up and I wear a shirt. Right now, I wear a shirt. In the morning, when I get up, I put on a shirt, right? Putting on clothes, wearing clothes. We have different names for when we start and when we continue, and then when we stop. So these are always important ideas, and if I want to say, at 10 o'clock, which one is it at? Time is just a person walking, and he stops at that point. So it's like if I'm walking here, and I stop at the door. We use at to describe not being in, not going to, but a place where you are located, right? So we have mostly these three, in, on, and at, that we use for most of our time ideas, right? What are some of the other time ones that you know? These are popular ones for tests because they're hard to learn, right? Mm-hmm. On the weekend, okay. This one is confusing because depending on what country you're in, you might hear in the weekend too. So this one is tricky, but the simplest answer is when we look at a week schedule, we see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend. We see it in a work schedule as one piece of the week, just like a day of the week. So when we talk about about the weekend, it's the same thing as talking about a day of the week. But we don't do that for the week itself. That's always divided up into days. So yeah, there's that one. On the weekend, but also on Saturday, on Sunday. Okay. Are there others that you guys can think of that sometimes are a problem? Sometimes our answers, they aren't, this is the reason why, because in Latin they did it. Sometimes it's, this is how we use it, and the easiest way to think of it is like this, right? So, when we talk about time, if it's time passing, a period of time, then we usually use the same words, if it's hours or days or years, right? From and to, right? Like from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or from Monday to Friday, from 2012 to 2025, right? With from and to, it doesn't matter what the scale is, because we're talking about the same idea. But it's the same thing as from Hsinchu to Zhongli, right? It's that same idea. We have 2 points on a line that show the beginning and the end. But there are other ways to say this, and that's also where we have some problems. What else have you seen? From 8 o'clock, 有时候不是用 to, we use past. Not usually past. That works a bit differently. With from, sometimes you'll see until. Now, until should be on its own. The idea is from now until. So from now until 3 o'clock, you all need to keep your eyes open, right? So we have until, it's usually on its own, until 3 o'clock. But there's always the idea of from now, from today, okay? When we talk about past, then we're really just using our road idea again, right? Sometimes I ask students to stay past 3 o'clock. Sometimes I ask them to stay after 3 o'clock. It's like if we're driving on the road, we're going from Hsinchu to Zhongli, right? We're going from Hsinchu to Zhongli. We went past Zhongli because we want to go to Taipei, right? So even with words like after Zhongli, turn right and we'll go to Yilan, right? There are a lot of ways that our time and place prepositions, they influence each other. So sometimes really the best thing to do, 如果有时间的问题, put it into a time and put it into a place question. Draw it out as a road. And then usually it's easy to understand. Easier. Okay? So, 再一次 context here. If we start, I know it's grammar. Yeah, the 文法 and number one, right? It's not as much fun. But if we know the context, then you can understand more, even though it's words that you don't always hear, because we're talking about this one idea. So, okay. 这样子够了吗？还是还有问题吗？ If there's more to add to it, that's great too. 是这么多好了。Okay. Okay. So, other questions then? 还有什么可以问？
I mean that why we need to add the s for the verb? Because sometimes I saw the sound like everyone, everybody, and that the verb will become a singular.
That's a really good one. And that's also one of the more difficult ones. But 最重要的问题，如果有动词，英文的最重要的是有没有受词。Okay? When you look up a word in the dictionary, if it's a verb, the first thing 有受词没有受词，最重要的。如果是名词，最重要的可数还是不可数。Okay? So the first problem we have in English is counting.